Hello, Internet. Welcome to episode 338 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The secondary podcast is a little bit for everyone. And with me tonight, the greatest hostess in the entire world. She is amazing. You want me to stop talking so you can hear her? Erin Paulette. How you doing, Erin?
I am very scattered. My brain is all over the place, and I don't know how coherent I'm going to be tonight. I promise the listeners, I am not drunk. I am not on drugs. I'm just... It doesn't even feel like, hyper-focused distraction or whatever. My brain just... The gears are not engaging for whatever reason. I think some of it has to do with all the pollen down here in Florida. And so I've been having allergy problems. And so I'm just a little bit loopy and no thinky good with the brain meats.
Are you taking any allergy meds? Because those can sometimes, Benadryl's known to make people loopy.
I don't take Benadryl. I take Claritin D 24-hour. I have been taking antihistamines and decongestants for nearly all of my life. And so I don't get drowsy from them anymore. One of my very earliest memories, and we're talking like before kindergarten. So I don't know how old I was, but it was 6 or younger. Mom would give me a big old tablespoon of Dimetap, which is what we had back then. And it was it was vaguely grape flavored, the way that whatever cough medicine is vaguely cherry flavored.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't think I took it as an infant, but I feel like I'd been taking that since I was a toddler. I've been on allergy meds for practically my entire life.
Well, what a coincidence. I'm currently rocking some Claritin in my system as well, and but it's not for the allergies outside. We're not quite there. Any day now, things will start to bloom here in Massachusetts, but still it's pretty bleak and barren outside. But because I had my our air conditioner, we got mini splits because we got an old house with steam heat. So we found that those were like the absolute best solution to getting AC and some heat into the home. They were due for a cleaning, and who were they due for a cleaning? But it meant that, number one, they were blasting all that crap out of those systems, which they were using water. So I don't think a lot of it got aerosolized, but you never know. But also meant that I had to pull all the furniture away from the walls that were underneath them. And, when you pull some furniture out that, hasn't been pulled out in a while, you find some treasures.
Oh, I thought you were going to be talking about the epic dust bunnies and lint piles.
Well, so I definitely found that. I definitely found, yeah, I could have built an entire cat out of the, they were dust ponies at this point. Yeah, there was quite a few of those, and yeah, just stuff that had fallen behind places, and we moved the coffee table, which hadn't been moved in a while, and it's one of those ones that has like the lower the top, and then it has the lower shelf, and so stuff could go underneath that lower shelf and just disappear in the darkness. And we found some treasures. So yeah, there was a lot of vacuuming today and a lot of cleaning up, and I have a dust allergy, and I definitely have a dust allergy still, but the Claritin appears to be working just fine.
Okay, what is the most impressive treasure that you found while doing this cleaning?
We didn't really find anything impressive. Like, I found like there was a couple of clothes hangers that had fallen. Like, my wife has a little like wardrobe clothes hangery thingy. It's a clothes rack in our bedroom. And I assumed that like she had taken something off of it. And then ever so often when you take like a jacket off, you get that last sleeve off and it just goes woo, 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 shoom. And so there was like several clothes hangers that were underneath something. And they were so encrusted with dust that I needed to like take them downstairs to the sink that has the garbage disposal and just wash them off in that sink.
Absolutely thrilling.
Yeah. Yeah. It's domestic life.
I mean, you built it up. You said treasures, and I thought you found something neat or interesting, but no.
No, it's really more the ironic sense of the treasures. It's like the meme of the little baby with a smile on her face is, I got a surprise for you. It's poop. Little baby just crawls up to you. Oh, look at you. And you pick them up, and then you realize how much they stink. Oh, no.
So, you know who else stinks like a baby full of poo?
Who's that, Aaron?
And I realize I just set up a great thing. It makes it sound like I'm going for our listeners, but I wouldn't do that to you.
No.
Well, New Jersey.
Yes, indeed. They do stink. And the story that we are talking about here is that Henry Repeating Arms, longtime staple of New Jersey, is leaving New Jersey for Rice Lake, Wisconsin. And this is a long list of gun companies that have left the anti-gun Northeast. Because of course, so many gun companies got their starts here because the Northeast was where like the Industrial Revolution happened in the United States.
I mean, the original 13 colonies.
Mm-hmm. But also,
I
mean, it's one of those. That's also kind of the split. Is the South? The South was the farmland, and the North was the factories.
Okay.
And so yeah, you've got like just recently was Smith & Wesson is in the process of leaving Massachusetts. Essentially, half of them are down in Tennessee, and the other half are still in Springfield, Mass. We've got, let's see, I think officially Car Arms has left. They left New York a while back, but I believe they've closed down their plant in Massachusetts as well, and they're working entirely out of Pennsylvania now. We've got, let's see, there was PTR was in Connecticut, and I think, did they go to South Carolina, North Carolina? Not sure. I do know Beretta left Maryland, and they moved to South Carolina. Let's see, any others? Whole bunch of them, but yeah, and it's I don't know if New Jersey was doing the same thing. I know Smith & Wesson, it was the most telegraphed leaving ever. Was a lawmaker filed a law that essentially just said, look, we're banning all these assault weapons and high capacity magazines, but there's companies in this state, namely Smith & Wesson being the biggest one, that makes those to sell other places. Well, we should just make it so it's illegal for them to make them here too. And and the law didn't pass, but Smith & Wesson said, we're not going to wait around for you guys to get successful. It's like if somebody starts shooting at you, they don't have to hit you for you to duck behind cover.
And then when those companies leave, someone from the state level government is always complaining about the income loss and job loss.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, do you not understand the consequences of your actions? That's... I don't know how it's happened, and this is a rant for another time, but it seems like within the past 10, 15 years, people have lost the ability to consider second and third order effects of their actions. And this is just an example of it. You know, if you make a law that turns a state hostile to manufacturing, don't be surprised when that manufacturing leaves for a place that isn't hostile and in fact welcomes them.
Yep.
Well, the consequences of my own actions. Who could have seen it coming?
Yeah, I mean, it's been going on long before that, and probably long before that. I mean, I was immediately thinking about there was an interview where Barack Obama was talking about how he was going to raise a bunch of money by raising capital gains tax. And the reporter said, Well, you do know historically when capital gains tax rises up, people stop investing. And so actually they raise less money by raising the taxes on capital gains. And I think Obama just went, yeah, we'll move on to the next question. And he did raise capital gains tax and income went down. Go figure.
I'm just reminded of Ryan George in that particular YouTube series pitch meeting, where the executive character asks a question and the writer says, "Okay, shut up."
Yes. How about you get off my back about that?
Yeah.
So yeah, on one hand, I mean, it does suck with the, I'm sure many of the workers were offered relocation fees and bonuses and things like that so that they could pack up and leave New Jersey. But again, many people are stuck in that area. I know that somebody asked a person at Smith & Wesson, this was, more than a decade ago, why do you guys still stick around here? This is such a gun unfriendly state. They're like, we've been here for like over 100 years and we have generations of families that have worked here. Kids grew up with their dad working in Smith & Wesson or grandfather working at Smith & Wesson, and their dad works at Smith & Wesson, and now they're working at Smith & Wesson, and just that history going through there. And we just don't want to pack and move because we know we can't bring them all with us. And that's
a very nice way of saying it would be a pain in the butt to do. So if you pass laws that are more of a pain in the butt than moving, they're going to overcome that inertia.
Yep. No, that is absolutely how it works in the long run. And so it really does suck for the people in New Jersey that were working at Henry Rifles. And of course, while New Jersey is an anti-gun hostile state, I have to suspect that the people of Henry are not anti-gun people.
Mm-hmm.
And likely don't agree with the New Jersey laws and likely don't vote for politicians that want to take away their rights. And there's only so far that goes, especially how increasingly hostile the anti-gun states have gone. The pro-gun states have gotten a whole lot friendlier, but the anti-gun states have gotten really nasty and unhinged. So yeah, I don't know if it's good in the long run. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference in the long run as far as the rifles go. There'll be people in Wisconsin that are going to enjoy some employment over there, and hopefully some New Jersey people will be very, very glad to move out of the state of New Jersey and have gainful employment. So we'll see.
So, continuing on the theme of crazy anti-gun states.
Yes.
So, Hawaii. And this is some good news. I have to ask, Weer'd, because, it seems like 3 of our topics here link to the Reload. Does the Reload sponsor us now?
I mean, I'm a member of the Reload, so I kind of sponsor them. It is literally one of the best places to get Second Amendment news, just because they are just so even-handed and good, and they work really hard to get primary sources. So I really like the Reload. And so if I'm looking for, these are all stories that I had heard about, and I just went on the Reload to see if they had written up a story on it.
We should get them to sponsor this episode.
Absolutely.
Right. So Hawaii is one of those states that, at least in my mind, I lump together with California and New York, in that they aren't just gun prohibitionist. They are crazy about it, and they dig in their heels. And so we've got some good news in this case, although I don't know if this is going to be kicked up to the Supreme Court or not. But in Hawaii, there were, of their many onerous gun laws, they had 2 that were declared unconstitutional. And one of them was that when you went to buy a handgun, you had to get a permit to do so, and you had to buy the gun within 10 days of the permit. And it, no, that was the other thing. There was also a requirement to have the gun inspected. And so you have to get permission to buy the gun. You only have a limited amount of time to buy the gun, and then you have to bring the gun to the police to inspect it and hope that they approve it. And Hawaii tried to do an end run around this. This is called making the case moot by changing the law. So that they go, oh, no, you don't have 10 days, you have 30 days. And the inspection is only for firearms that you purchase from a private sale, or you make it home, or you bring in from out of state. And fortunately, the Banc panel of the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals saw through this, and they said, no, we see what you're doing, and it's not going to work, because even with these amendments, they're sufficiently similar to the original versions, and we don't like what you're doing here. And so this is good news, but I am almost positive that this is going to be kicked up the ladder, because when it comes to gun rights cases, unless there's something decisive like the judge makes a ruling of something with prejudice, then there's always going to be an appeal. And
like you said, Hawaii is vehemently anti-gun, so under no circumstance are they going to say, you know what, this is a fair cop. Despite the fact them trying to moot it, which, I mean, no, in jurisprudence, that's not how this works, but it sure does sound like an admission of guilt.
It sure does. So yeah, according to the article, Hawaii can appeal the decision to the en banc Ninth Circuit, go directly to SCOTUS, or let it stand. They're not going to do the last one. We know that much. So brief segue here, because I know I've said gun prohibitionist, and it's something that I say a lot, and I don't know if I've explained this on the podcast, but if I have, I'll do it again. All right. When you talk about gun control laws and you call people like gun grabbers or gun banners, this is all very loaded language, pun intended. The thing is, though, when you use that particular phrase, it sounds very adversarial. And I understand that gun rights people feel this opposition to gun laws, and I get that. I use gun prohibition because we have this fantastic historical precedent of alcohol prohibition in the past and how it failed. And so when you link gun control to failed alcohol prohibition, you are making a connection, both historically and if you've got someone who knows their history, intellectually and maybe even emotionally. And you can talk about how prohibition doesn't work, and you can talk about the war on drugs, drug prohibition. Has that worked? And so you can build this case of prohibition. Not only does it not solve the problem, but it creates more problems. It's a big expense. People die or go to jail, and the problem still isn't solved. So that's why I'm a big fan of calling them gun prohibitionists. You do as you like.
Well played. All right, so where are we going with that? Are we moving on to the next story? Because I think overall, the only other thing I have to add with the Hawaii thing is that is the whole inspection idea. I mean, they did change it so that it was only for homemade or personally purchased firearms. So I guess in theory they're inspecting it to make sure that it's a legal gun. And of course, that's what they claim, but that's not why. Yeah, it also allows them to register it and all that. But yeah. As you're correct, the bottom line is that it's just a pain in the butt. It is also getting people to interact with law enforcement, because you could argue that, criminals are afraid to go to police stations and hang out in police stations because they're criminals, and that would be bad. And so therefore criminals aren't going to follow the laws, and therefore we can arrest them with their guns because they didn't register them. But also there's lots of people that don't like cops. And also there's a lot of people who don't like extra bullcrap in their life and just want to buy their gun and go shooting. Mm-hmm. And oddly enough, if you live in America, pretty much everybody, you just go buy a gun and then you could go right to the gun shop like later on. You don't need to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the permits. Like, don't call it a permit. When you buy a permit, like it's a thing that's usable. Like my carry permit is good for 5 years. I guess it's one of those, if you get like a protest permit or a festival permit or a gathering permit or something like that, it's only good for like that day. But still, the idea is you're getting a coupon.
It's a license, and I use that in the sense of when you license software, mm-hmm. you don't fully own it, you just rent it.
Yeah, that's true.
No, you don't fully own this right, you just rent it from the government.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, speaking of governments, the Ninth Circuit has given and the Ninth Circuit taketh away. And so, California, the ammo magazine ban, also known as Duncan v. Bonta. So we don't have a good result on that one. I've been talking a lot weird. I'm going to let you handle this.
Yeah, this is us. We've talked about this before. This is the appeal on the large capacity magazines. This was the case that had the California Freedom Week, where the Judge Benitez ruled that it was unconstitutional, and there was 1 week before the appeal happened, and made it so that they were only briefly legal, and it also gives people plausible deniability for their magazines. Whether or not that'll work, I haven't heard about anyone getting jammed up with a high capacity magazine and then
because magazines don't have serial numbers.
It's true. And so and so this case was on its way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled on NYSERPA, and they sent it back saying, here, look at NYSERPA and continue your judgment. And they went, no, we won't look at NYSERPA, and we'll just do the exact same thing. So it originally was heading up to that with a 7-4 against in favor of the ban, and again it came back with the exact same judges voted the exact same way.
Yeah, I mean, they literally bounced it back to Judge Benitez, mm-hmm. who in 2023, and he ruled the ban unconstitutional. And then again, the Ninth Circuit stepped in to stay the ruling, and so they literally just repeated this with no change. And I get the feeling that SCOTUS is not going to look well on that, because they specifically said, okay, we remand this back to you, review it in light of NYSERPA v. Bruin, and it looks like the case didn't. And so, yes, this is going to go before SCOTUS. How do I know this? Well, it turns out that the law firm representing Duncan et al. Would be Michael and Associates. Michael and Associates are the law firm that employs our friend Costas Moros. And the head of the firm, Mr. Michael, is also the head of the California Rifle and Pistol Association. So they are absolutely going to appeal this to SCOTUS. And normally I would ask Costas if we could get on the AC brief, but because it's their case, we can't join that. But he didn't make an absolute guarantee, because it sounds like they're going to be very busy, because, gosh, writing a case for SCOTUS takes a lot of time. But he said that there was a very good chance that he would drive some sort of, he didn't use the word fundraiser, but that's kind of the impression that I got, in order to gin up support for an AC brief. Let me look and see exactly what he said here, because I don't want to misquote him. Yes, we will probably be coordinating an amicus brief campaign, though. But he says probably, and that's not certain, so I'm shopping around for other venues to see if we can join their AC brief. And I coordinated with Lara Smith of the Liberal Gun Club. She's going to be on later. And I asked if LGC is going to be filing a brief, and she says, I don't know anyone who's doing it. And I say, you know what? I'm currently looking around, and if I find one, I'll see if I can get you in, and you do the same for me. And she said, bet. So I don't quite know how we're going to do it, but our two organizations are looking really hard to join an AC brief in Duncan v. Bonta, because we want a piece of this.
Yeah. Hopefully this will come through, or, I mean, I think there's a couple of cases that are floating around right now that are, there's the Maryland case, there's the Ocean State Tactical out of Rhode Island, and both of those are assault weapons cases, and I believe both of those, their assault weapons bans also include high capacity magazines, very similar to the 1994 federal assault weapons ban.
Isn't there also one about Snopes?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I don't mean the website. But there's a gun rights case before SCOTUS, and I'm not digging it up
Snope
here.
v. Bruin. I'm trying to remember what that one is exactly about.
Snope v. Brown.
Brown, okay.
Yeah, whether the Constitution permits the state of Maryland to ban semi-automatic rifles that are in common use for lawful
purposes.
purposes.
That's the Maryland one. I forgot the name of that one. But yeah, so there's a few cases. So really, any one of them could technically also affect this case as well. So we shall see. Again, it's hard to tell on the tea leaves. And hey, maybe somebody could introduce some legislation that just made this all moot, and we wouldn't have to just dump everything in the lap of the Supreme Court. Maybe I don't know which one's better for everyone in the long run, but in the short run, you could just pass a law that says that people can own whatever guns they want, and if you don't do it, we could just withhold federal funds from your state.
I mean, that would be something.
Have fun paving your own highways.
So I so want to segue to the next topic, but I still have to ask, because you have a link in the show notes to a nearly 19-minute video done by one of the dissenting judges in Duncan v. Bonta.
Yes, so this is Judge Lawrence Van Dyke. He was one of the dissenting judges, and he literally went back into his chambers, of which he's got like an AK hanging on his wall. And
yeah, I absolutely love it. It's behind his desk, and it looks like there's some sort of plaque on the stock.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a very controversial display piece. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, but yeah, no, he is very clearly a gun nut, and essentially the crux of he does it on video, and his whole statement is to say that he heard many of his fellow judges support of this law, and he felt, and I would argue, dealing with anti-gun people, that he felt that they were very ignorant on how guns function and work, which, again, most anti-gun people don't know really anything about guns. And so I think that's a fair assumption. And so he pulled out a bunch of guns. He showed a few basic types of guns, but really the presentation really kind of peaked out where he was talking about how essentially people are saying that magazines are accessories to the firearm, and so because they can be improved upon, they are not the arm itself, and so therefore not supported by the right to keep and bear arms. And which he didn't make the argument about the fact that, like, yeah, if you don't have a magazine, yeah, technically you could still shoot most guns, but it's a royal pain in the butt to do so. But he actually pulled out a bunch of SIG 320s, and he has a bunch of them and a bunch of accessories, and just starts like tearing them down and mixing and matching them just to show how I mean, the SIG 320 is a chassis gun, and so there's really, like, when you actually look at what is the serialized firearm part of the SIG 320, there's not much there. And then on top of that, he noted that he has an upgraded fire control group on his competition gun. And so therefore, even like the bulk of the like core part is upgradable. And so therefore, by that nature, can't be considered an arm. And noting that, again, each part of the gun, while every part of a gun is both the gun and not the gun, because you need all the parts in your gun for it to work. And so it was just a really, really good video. Really liked it. And also there was a video a while back of the ATF. I think they were talking about the Glock switches, but they had an ATF expert on there, and he attempted to take down a Glock to show how they work, and he just couldn't manage to do it. And meanwhile, this guy not only tears down a SIG 320 like he's ringing a bell, but also popped out the fire control group insanely easily as well. I've never taken the fire control group out of it. I've never taken down a 320 personally, but I have I upgraded the grip module on my P365, and while it wasn't hard to do, it wasn't as easy as he made it look. So it was really fun to see someone who is that practiced with handling of firearms doing it. And it was a really, really well set up display on how firearms work and how ridiculous the idea that a magazine couldn't be a protected arm. It's a fair statement. It's part of the gun. He points out the fact that the many of the 320s come with 17 and 18 round magazines, but sometimes up to 20 round magazines as factory standard equipment. And so they're not upgrades. That's the magazine for the gun. And yeah, we all know that it's a bad decision. And so and he really put it through, and a whole bunch of people are getting up in arms about it. I don't know the jurisprudence behind it, and what's if he didn't break any sort of ethical laws by how he presented his information, but I would still also argue that I suspect they're mad because he's showing how wrong they are.
I just have to respect a judge who says, okay, not only are you wrong, but instead of saying it, I'm going to show you for you visual learners, with a little bit of the verbal stank of, you may be too dumb to understand the words, so here are pictures for you. And then proceeds, as you say, to strip these guns down very smoothly. I wonder how long he practiced that, but it looks just absolutely fluid. And he definitely, maybe I'm reading into it, but it was very much a listen up, you primitive screwheads moment.
It really was. It really was. I mean, really, the choice of the 320, I mean, some people have noted that the 320 has been under a lot of fire recently due to SIG's little PR campaign saying, oh, there's absolutely nothing, no evidence that they can fire without the trigger being pressed. Well, yeah, except for all those times. But having it be a 320 and having it be a chassis gun, the fact that you can pop out the fire control group, and that is the gun. And just really, if you see the core of a 320 or a P365, you're like, that's it. And it's also like the most non-functional thing you could see. Like, it doesn't have a barrel, it doesn't have a slide, it doesn't have sights, it doesn't have any place for ammunition or anything like that. It's just a trigger and some bits and bobs. And so to suddenly say that, oh, only that is the protected arm, or only the little bit of sheet metal on either side that has the serial number is the protected arm, is just dumb, because that's not a gun. Yes, legally it's a gun, but no, it's not a gun.
I'm getting very strong Plato vibes. Diogenes. Plato asserted that man was a featherless biped, and so Diogenes came in with a plucked chicken and said, "Behold a man." And so, here's the definition of a gun. Okay, useless fire control grip. Behold a gun.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very, very, very much so. I almost say maybe that wasn't in the account, but I almost want to hear him say that he threw it up because he lived in a barrel there in I think it was in Athens, and I think it was one of those he overheard Plato saying that, and so he plucked the chicken and threw it up over the wall into the courtyard. Either way, Diogenes, very punk rock. All right, so on to this last topic. Did you want to take it, Aaron? You seemed excited. I'm excited.
No, you go ahead and you do this.
Yes, so this is really kind of just the outline. So we will be talking about this again, but essentially the DOJ has plans to essentially take the prohibited person status jurisdiction away from the ATF, and the DOJ will now, once it's been outlined, will be in charge of restoring rights to individuals who have been declared prohibited people under the law. And I gotta say, I'm pleased about this. I mean, no matter what, even if it's amazingly disappointing, it's not as wide sweeping as I would like to see. I've said before, I am comfortable with the fact that there being a prohibited person status, the libertarian statement of, anybody who can't be trusted with a firearm shouldn't be trusted in public without supervision. Great statement. We don't have the manpower to do that. And so, but also by me saying that there should be a prohibited person status doesn't mean that I agree with the current ruling, where any felony, and some felonies are really, really dumb, and or they're bad, but they're not bad as in this person is physically dangerous.
Well, they specifically call out in this article, Brian Range, a Pennsylvania man who lost his gun rights for lying on a food stamp application in the 1990s.
Yep.
And he's one of the plaintiffs. And it's just, yes, absolutely, let this man petition to have his rights back. This is completely different from someone who has committed a violent, harmful crime like armed robbery or sexual assault or murder.
Yes. Yeah, and of course, also, I mean, I always talk about Martha Stewart. Would I be worried about riding up in an elevator unsupervised with Martha Stewart? No. If anything, Martha Stewart may be worried about me. Not that I mean you any harm, Martha. That's fine. She would be worried because one year my mom made Thanksgiving dinner entirely off of her cookbook, and it was by far the worst Thanksgiving dinner I've ever eaten. But
I honestly thought you were going to make a fart in the elevator joke.
I mean, that also might happen. My cookbooks do contain a lot of beans. But also, may I add the late Bernie Madoff. Super duper predatory guy, very, very bad, ruined a ton of lives with his Ponzi scheme and all that. But yeah, and he was a bad dude, and he died in prison, and that was a perfectly fine place for him to die. But, if in the event that he was let out from that prison, would you really be concerned about him physically harming you? No, I
would not.
I wouldn't trust him with managing my finances, but I don't think he would hurt me. So
yeah, the way I've always heard it is that the way to judge someone's character, would you trust them with a puppy? Mm-hmm. Would you trust them with your bank account? Would you trust them? Well, I've heard it to date your sister, but any family member. And if you're comfortable with all of those, then they're a good person. And so, no, I would not trust Bernie Madoff with my bank account. But I would certainly trust him with a puppy, and the sister thing is up in the air. I don't know about that. But the point being is, yeah, he's not a violent person.
Yeah, and that's overall my just elevator speech for how we need to reform the prohibited person status is that like it should only be for violent offenses. I could even see violent misdemeanors being enough to get somebody onto a prohibited person status. If you're the type of person who gets drunk and just starts throwing hands, or the type of person who just sees an insult in every sort of behavior and just gets violent. Well,
if you have an impulse control problem,
mm-hmm.
yeah.
And that impulse control problem is violence.
Yes.
Because, yeah, I may walk into a gun store and buy things that I wasn't expecting to buy.
Okay, fair.
But I'm not violent. I don't shoot anybody with those guns. I may do irresponsible amount of damage to the berm at my range, but yeah, definitely it's the violent behavior and lack of impulse control is absolutely something I could see as a very good thing. But again, also there should always be a path towards expunging this prohibited person status. Again, if somebody turns out, oh yeah, no, I realized I had a major problem with alcohol. Every time I got drunk, I would wake up with a black eye and bloody knuckles. So I realized, oh, I had a problem. I went to 12-step. I quit drinking. And you know what? I find that problem has gone away, and it's been years, and I haven't gotten into a fight, and I haven't caused any problems and all that. Let the judge hear it out. If it sounds sincere enough and there's enough evidence presented, absolutely restore your rights. That's fine. You can have a gun now. And so, yeah, again, we will see what this actually gets through. But honestly speaking, anything is a step in the right direction, because right now there's minimal ways to get your rights restored after you've lost them. It can be done, but it's rare and it's difficult, and certainly probably not accessible to your average person. I think you definitely need to be someone of means to get your rights restored.
I'm also pretty sure it requires a lawyer, and that's an expense.
Correct. Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely going to be difficult and expensive.
And so yeah, anything really will be a step in the right direction towards getting rid of this onerous standard of taking people's rights away for the rest of their life.
For our first segment, Weer'd interviews friend of the show, Lara Smith of the Liberal Gun Club, about something that's a personal bugbear I have: the politicization of mental health and gun rights.
So I am pleased to welcome back to the Assorted Calibers podcast my good friend Lara Smith of the Liberal Gun Front. Liberal Gun Club. How you doing, Lara?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. The Liberal Gun Fun is very appropriate. We do have fun at all of our events, for sure.
See, you just did the same thing that Aaron always does. I make a mistake, and then I go, okay, I'll edit that out, and then you go and comment on it. I'm like, now I can't. Oh, so Lara, we've been trying to get a hold of each other for a while. Wires have been crossed and all of that. We're finally together, and you're like, what do we want to talk about? And I'm like, I got something to talk about. And you says, well, I've got something else to talk about. And you were talking about this new bill, and I know nothing about it. So you know what? I'm just going to get the heck out of the way and let you go.
Okay. So there was a bill floated in Minnesota, which I should point out is a blue state. So, not something that's ever going to pass, in the form it's in. But a Republican state senator in Minnesota floated a bill seeking to amend the definition of mental illness in Minnesota to include what he calls Trump Derangement Syndrome. And the way it reads in the bill is the acute onset of paranoia in an otherwise normal person that, in reaction to the policies and presidencies of President Donald J. Trump, symptoms may include Trump-induced general hysteria, which produces an inability to distinguish between legitimate policy differences and signs of psychic pathology in President Donald J. Trump's behavior. I'm not quite sure what he's trying to say about Trump's behavior with that, but that's the language in the bill. But taking it seriously or not, the issue here is that this is kind of, lots of stuff gets floated by both sides as weather balloons, right? And a lot of the issue on the left and a lot of concern people on the left are having with what's happening on the far right now and kind of lawmakers on the far right is this idea that in Minnesota and in other states, there's laws that affect your gun rights based on your mental health. And this would be a bellwether to say, if you speak out in any way negatively more than, oh, I don't know if I like that, we can call you insane and then we can red flag you. So laws like this getting floated are really worrisome. And they're kind of the jump's not that far right now to other stuff. So there's been a lot of talk on what's going to happen. There's a lot of concern with trans people in my circles and in our organization about whether this is kind of a balloon to say, hey, what if they say being trans is a mental illness that means you don't have guns? What if other things? What if speaking out against Trump or any lawmaker for that matter? I don't care if it's Newsom, who, by the way, I don't like. I think you know that. What if it's speaking out against any lawmaker? And that's the grounds to red flag you. I think a lot. I hope most gun owners have a problem with it.
Yeah, this is really an ongoing problem, and it's really kind of bipartisan in the fact that there's obviously you've just cited something coming from the right of center that is that's going to try to declare people mentally ill and all that, and of course whether or not they're trying to aim that as to disrupt their Second Amendment rights. Certainly, I know of a lot of hard right conservatives who would be more than happy to strip the gun rights of their political opponents. Oh, the Antifa people and the Black Lives Matter people, they're dangerous terrorists, so they can't have guns. And of course there's the anti-gun side from the left as well that's coming through, and I've definitely heard many people float like, oh, if you're on antidepressants, well, you're mentally ill and you shouldn't have guns. If you've ever sought inpatient treatment, then you're mentally ill and you should never have guns. Just trying to narrow that view of that. And of course, I will just note that I don't think that they're like the neurotypical is really just an average. I don't think there's any one person that exemplifies it.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing that we've been hearing is, and this is a real concern, right, with RFK Jr. in that position, that it could be a felony to take certain drugs. And I don't mean illegal drugs. I mean, widely prescribed, widely accepted pharmaceuticals, things like GLP-1s, which are the weight loss drugs, hormones, HRT therapy, that if you did that, you'd strip a whole lot of women of their gun rights. And you'd strip a whole lot of women on the right of their gun rights, because it's not just trans people who take HRT.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of I know several people who have had testicular cancer and need to be on hormone therapy and various other. I had my uncle had prostate cancer, and they slowed its progress so that the other drugs could work with hormone replacement therapy. And I will also note that my sister-in-law is diabetic and is on GLP-1 for it was originally done as a diabetes drug, and just people realize, oh wait, you stop eating on this and you lose a ton of weight. I want to lose a ton of weight, so it became popular. But everyone who's taking a GLP-1 drug for weight loss is using it off label.
Well, and not entirely, because what GLP-1s do is it's not exactly that they regulate diabetes, it's that they regulate your endocrine system, so that there are people who take it for weight loss for things that aren't diabetes but also cause weight gain. There's something called PCOS, which is a disorder that women get I shouldn't say disorder. It's a dysregulation of hormone levels, and it makes women gain weight. It makes them, and it can makes you at a much higher risk for heart disease, diabetes, a whole bunch of things. That's actually an on-label use. There are some weight loss uses that are on label for certain of these drugs because of their heart protective. They've been shown, they've been proven to be heart protective, even aside from reducing your A1C. So, right, like all of these drugs do all of these things. But the other thing that they're looking at making illegal are ADHD drugs, SSRIs, right? All of that whole idea that we're going to send kids who are on ADHD to re-education camps, basically, just unbelievable stuff. All of that is really a way to strip people of Second Amendment rights. And I think a lot of people aren't looking at it that way, but that's a real concern I think people need to have. If you are suddenly saying these things are felonies, well, then what rights go away with that? It strips people. It's not just the right to vote. And it's a lot of things. So I'm always amused at things like this too, because you see the people who introduce them. So like the Trump Derangement Syndrome or TDS thing. The guy he introduced the bill, and the next day he was arrested for soliciting prostitution from a minor. So maybe we should concentrate on the real felonies.
I mean, that's certainly a bigger problem than being concerned about Trump.
Yeah, agreed. Right, and or being concerned about, frankly, any politician. You see it on the other side. Everybody has that uncle that you go to dinner with, and you mention the name of, I don't know, any president in the last 40 years, and there's one that's gonna get him just spitting mad. Depends on which uncle you have, but one of them's going to make it happen.
I'm sometimes that uncle. Well, so, I mean, but the good news is it doesn't look like it's going to be going anywhere because it's Minnesota.
It's Minnesota, but it is concerning. It's concerning that people think that they can actually put that stuff out.
And the important part is not necessarily this bill, though. I'll link it in the show notes, and I'll link that news story because I want to read it over anyway in the show notes. But I think the more important part of it is to look at the mindset, and I always talk about the knife bans that are going on in the UK and various other countries that have already heavily restricted their guns, and now they're going after knives. And I do it not to necessarily talk about that as if what's happening over there is particularly relevant to us, but to show the mindset of the people who are going after our guns and or going after our freedoms. And so we always need to keep this in the back of our minds and stay vigilant.
Yeah. And I think I've told this story. I think I've told this story on the show. I did a piece for the BBC where a producer and one of their personalities came over, and a group of us taught them to shoot for a day. And then they filmed us, in our houses and kind of outside of the range as well, for a piece that the BBC did. And, they're from the UK, perfectly nice, really nice. We all took them out to dinner after the day at the range. The day at the range, they were a little nervous to begin with, but by the end of the day, they were having a good time. They thought it was awesome. They loved all the ARs. Everybody loved the PC-9. Like, everybody had a great time. We get to dinner and we start talking about knives. And one of the guys said, "Is it true that everybody in America has the knife all the time?" And we were all like, "Oh, yeah." And so the 8 of us that were at dinner, who were, people being interviewed and our spouses or partners, we all 8 of us had a knife on us. I just pulled them out. We were like, yeah, of course we do. Everyone has them. They were absolutely terrified. Like, that was way more scary than the guns were. That the idea to somebody who lives in the UK, that people here just walk around with knives on them all the time. And these were California legal, 4 inches or less folding knives, not automatic, still terrifying. And we had to explain, like, no, in the US, these are just tools. Everybody carries one because, you can cut your seatbelt if you get in a car accident. You can, you open packages with them. You can get through all that stupid, like, crazy plastic packaging that thing come from, like batteries or whatever. We were like, no, this is just a tool. Everyone has these. Let's have these. They could not believe that was true. And it was truly, I mean, I'm not making fun of them for being scared. It was legitimately disquieting to them to realize that everywhere they had gone in the U.S., almost everyone around them had a knife.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't know that because no one was getting stabbed, because people are good and people can be trusted.
Well, and because people here haven't had that hype in their ears, right? And it's just not, I mean, is there a knife crime? Yeah, a lot. As a matter of fact, in unhoused populations, knife crimes are a real problem, in particular. And in California, there's a lot of there's a lot of medical stuff around that, not criminalization, but real public health concern, because knife fights are bad. No one comes out of those in good shape. And, but there's a lot of, so there, there's acknowledgement that it exists, but it's not a thing, right? It's not something that everyone here worries about because we're used to them as a tool. It's just no one here really worries about somebody having a hammer in a toolbox in their house or their car.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weapon. More people die from them than ARs, I think, or it's really close every year, but they're just not seen that way because they're not hyped that way.
Well, you know what? This is all great stuff to think on. And so thank you so much for coming on the show, Lara.
I really appreciate it. This is so much fun. It's always so much fun to be on the show and talk about this stuff. But, and if people are interested, I know there's a lot of people, a lot of new people coming into the community. It's theliberalgunclub.com. We're getting more trainers every day. We will get you familiarized with firearms. And especially if you're the spouse of someone who wants a firearm and you feel uncomfortable with it, just like the BBC folks felt uncomfortable with the knives at that dinner, you can email me, you can email us. We will talk you through it. And you know what? It's okay to feel that way. And we'll talk about why and what are the real risks. And I know of people who don't have firearms in their home. They own firearms, but they're not in their home. They're in a safe storage facility because their spouse mentally or a partner or a roommate is not in a mental spot that they feel comfortable having the firearms in the home, right? Responsible gun owners will talk about all of this, and we're happy to talk to people about this.
Well, thank you so much, Lara.
Thank you for having me on.
So I have thoughts. I have lots of thoughts. I've got a list here. First of all, I would apologize about making you keep your bloopers in the show, but I know that our listeners love it, and so do you, so I'm going to keep doing it.
No comment.
Second, I heard about that Minnesota senator, and I'm glad this happened. I'm glad he resigned. He sounds like a real piece of crap, and I hope that bill fails. And it sounds like it will, because with his resignation, the Democrats have an additional vote over this, and so I hope it fails.
On top of that, it sounds like upon the charges being leveled against him, the Senate had convened to actually have him expelled, and so he resigned ahead of that, just to save everyone a whole lot of trouble and drama. And so him resigning in shame ahead of them literally saying good, because if you were leaving one way or the other, I suspect that even the Trump supporters that may have supported this really kind of goofy piece of legislation probably will want to give it a good leaving alone.
Mm-hmm. So I need to be vague because I don't want to reveal details that my friend doesn't want to be revealed. But I have a good friend in that area who hunts pedophiles he doesn't quite do it for a living, but it's more than a hobby for him, but he gets significant emotional pleasure from it. And he not only knows the person who arrested this guy, but he's friends with him. And so he's got some inside baseball, which I can't share. But here's what I can share. Most of the time, the people that these pedophiles interact with are adult males pretending to be underage girls. And they share and compare the penis pictures that the pedophiles send them. And I'm pretty sure that there's laughing involved. And they also have an informal competition called Dumbest Pedo of the Week. And my friend won one of those once. And the super short version is that when he sent the picture of In Flagrante Delicto, it wasn't just of his member, but it was of him. I can say masturbating on this show, can't I?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so he sent a picture of that, and he was dumb enough to leave his school lanyard ID on. So my friend, without even trying, had the guy's name and where he works. And so, I mean, that happened at like 7 p.m. and then like 8 a.m. the next day, the local cops and the marshals perp walk him out of his third grade classroom and past the line of parents during the morning drop off.
Man. Just thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
I will say that there was a teacher at one of my schools that was a notorious predator, and unfortunately he got away with it. He passed away a few years ago, and yet never faced charges. But I've actually had met some of his victims just in passing, and yeah, that's it's disgusting. Yep. And so I'm glad they got one. And and
so I'm only about halfway done through my list here.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that the lanyard in place reminds me of what the owner of a gymnastics gym that my daughter was a member of for a while mentioned that somebody did a hit and run in the parking lot. They were backing out of the parking spot, hit another car, and rather than stick around and own up for it and exchange insurance information, they just drove off. Except for the accident ripped their license plate off.
Oh.
And so there was damage to the car, and there was a license plate that didn't belong to that car sitting on the ground beside it.
Convenient.
Yep.
Okay. Next one. People who have followed me know that I have a rant stored up about how weaponizing psychiatry to disarm people is a bad idea for everyone. Have you heard this, Weer'd? And if not, do you want to?
I may have heard some of this, but you know what? It's always good to have a refresher. And plus, we're always getting new listeners.
All right. So, weaponization of psychiatry is bad. And the people who promote this, like conservatives, they are sawing off the branch upon which they sit. And here's how. So in this case, we're going to go with being transgender, because for I don't know how many years I've heard that trans people are mentally ill. They shouldn't have guns. They should be locked up for their own good. So it goes like this. Gender dysphoria is listed in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, aka the DSM, which I refer to as the big catalog of crazy. I realize that's unfair, but it's a reference book on mental health and brain-related conditions and disorders. So the general public believes that if you suffer from any of the conditions listed in the DSM, you are mentally ill, in the unstable, likely crazy sense. This is, of course, not true, because there are all sorts of things that are listed in the DSM, like insomnia and depression and anxiety, but still, we're operating on public perception here. the mentally ill shouldn't have guns is a common rallying cry on both sides of the political spectrum. Therefore, since being transgender is in the DSM, and being in the DSM makes you crazy, transgender people are crazy, and therefore they shouldn't have guns, and that means stripping them of their Second Amendment rights without due process for the greater good. End sarcasm quotes. The problem is that once that precedent is established, things only get worse, because the next people that can get stripped of their Second Amendment rights are veterans with PTSD, because, hey, PTSD is in the DSM as well. And after that, likely people with depression because they're a suicide risk, and so on and so forth. And the coup de grace against the Second Amendment comes as an emboldened federal government with the weight of precedent behind it declares that anyone who distrusts and defies the authority of the government clearly has oppositional defiance disorder, which is listed in the DSM just like gender dysphoria. Now, oppositional defiant disorder manifests as anger and defiance towards authority figures. And gosh, since the lockdown of 2020, there are an awful lot of folks who fit that bill. So, since ODD is in the DSM, that means that anyone who mistrusts and opposes the government is mentally ill and therefore should be denied their Second Amendment rights for the good of all. So, anyone who thinks that weaponized psychiatry can't be used against people really should study how the Soviet Union handled their political dissidents and compare that to what's being called for today. So that's why you should never call for people you disagree with to have any of their rights, honestly, but their firearm rights stripped because, okay, once the low-hanging fruit is gone, it makes it easier to come for the rest of you. So protect the canaries in the coal mine, folks. That would be us, the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. And as I said in the interview, I mean, essentially, if you believe that you are completely, psychologically normal, you are non-neurodivergent, then you're neurotypical. That's the word I was looking for. You're neurotypical. You just haven't had a psych eval. So, I mean, it's just everybody's got something, and all that. Maybe some of those things are in the DSM, but the DSM comes and goes. Maybe someday what you got that isn't in the DSM suddenly becomes something in the DSM. And so...
I mean, in previous versions of the DSM, homosexuality was in there. It's not anymore.
It absolutely was. Yep. So it changes, it is fluid, and it touches us all in one way or another. So to suddenly, if you're saying, the old saying, if you point a finger at somebody else, there's three other fingers pointing back at you. Yeah, that's exactly how weaponizing mental health against your enemies is going to work.
Just anytime there's a law, again, second and third order effects, think about how it could be used against you when the opposition party gets in power, because you will never always be in power. Mm-hmm. You're always going to lose. And so think about a minute, game it out and go, how could this be misused? How could this be used to target people on my side? And you need to figure that out before you decide to pass that law. And so finally, point 4, if I'm not carrying a knife, I'm not dressed. And I don't understand people who are afraid of a simple tool. We are primates. We don't have predatory claws. We don't have very sharp teeth. We use tools to solve our problem. And if you've ever tried to open one of those plastic clamshells with your hands or your teeth, you understand just how difficult that is. Mm-hmm. We've talked at length about the United Kingdom. I don't need to say any more other than, oh, Lord.
Yep. No, today I was carrying a knife from the moment I put my pants on, and the knife actually happened to be a switchblade because I can. And I used that switchblade a whole bunch during the day. I used it to open a jar of pickles. I had the little tamper-proof plastic stuff around the edge of it. A knife is perfect for that.
Okay, great. I was worried you were using it to pry, and I was just shuddering.
It's my knife. I'll
good.
do what I want with it.
I mean, technically, yes, but I'm going to judge you.
Yes, yeah, no. I was just using it to cut the tamper-resistant seal off the outside of the pickle jar. I used it to open an Amazon package. I cut the label off of a bag of candy so that I could put it into a Tupperware container, and then I taped the logo for the candy onto the outside of it so that it was clearly labeled. There's all sorts of stuff that you could use, and at no point did I use it as a weapon, nor did I get into a finger snapping jazz dance with a rival.
Are you a jet or? Of course. Look, you're a marine biologist. Of course, you're a shark.
Of course, I'd be a shark. I'm also a dad, so it might be a baby shark.
And now our listeners are screaming at you for that earworm.
My daughter gets so mad now. It's one of those, like, that was like your most favorite song ever. Like, she was small, sitting in a high chair, barely able to talk, and she was singing the song, and I actually Googled what few words I could understand that she was saying, and I got enough of the lyrics out of it to get Baby Shark, and just went, huh, and like started playing it on the radio, and the look on her face when suddenly the song that was stuck in her head suddenly was playing on the radio at home, not at school where she had learned it, was just the, oh yes, this is awesome. But now she is old enough that, oh, that baby stuff, don't even talk about it. Don't even talk about fond memories. Ew, this baby stuff.
But you know what's not baby stuff?
Weird. Gun collecting, and specifically searching for grail guns. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one. Miles is getting near and dear to my heart when he talks about grail guns.
Hi, this is Miles with another episode of the Southpaw Corner. In this episode, I'm talking grail guns. And this is that highly desired gun that you can't necessarily find easily, whether it's a rare gun or a discontinued gun or even older gun than that. So it doesn't matter if you just have a desire for one of the nice Korth revolvers or a Smith & Wesson Model 39. It's what you are desiring to collect. It's something you want in your collection of firearms that doesn't necessarily have a purpose in your collection, except for you want it as a collectible. It could be Weer'd wanting a Desert Eagle in 44. It could be Oddball looking for a Phoenix Arm 22. Or Dave with a bunch of different ones like the Whitney Wolverine. Me, personally, my grail guns are more modern ones, but, there's still things that are hard to find for me. I just recently was able to purchase one of them, which was a Beretta 21A Bobcat. They're not available in Massachusetts on the gun roster that we have. So it's only ones that were in here before that that policy went into effect. So I was able to pick one up. It was one I wanted. Another one for me is the P series in 9mm from Ruger. I have a P85 and a P95 and a P345. I wouldn't mind having a P89, but the ones I'm really looking for is the P94 and 93, which are the rarer ones that, from what I can find locally. Again, I have to find ones that are mass compliant, which means they are already in the state. Also, for an older gun, I would love to find myself a reasonably priced M1 carbine, just as something to have in my collection. It is not something that, I have to have, but it's something I would like. There are lots of things that can make up your grail gun. It could be the shotgun that your father had that, got lost or sold off back in tough times, or the one that your grandfather carried in World War I. It doesn't matter what it is. It's something that you just want for some sentimental value, or to complete a collection of different style of guns that you have. For my stepfather, he always wanted to replace the lever action rifle that he sold when he was just marrying my mother back in the mid-70s. And he kept telling me about it. I tried to find one to replace it, and I was never able to find the right model. I did get him a bolt action 308 because I knew it was a 308 hunting rifle, but what he had described I never could find. And the funny part is, I ended up inheriting a very similar one, not his, from my grandfather on my mother's side, because he got the same one my grandfather had at the time, because they were hunting buddies and were going hunting together. You know, it was the Savage 99C that I have. I now have it, and it's something that'll never leave my possession because it is a sentimental one for me, along with his Browning A5. Will I use these a lot? No. Will I shoot them every once in a while? Sure. I mean, they're great guns. There's no reason not to. But it's not the thing for me as a general rule, but as sentimental value, that's what I'm keeping. Another one I've recently picked up last summer was my Super Blackhawk in .44 Magnum. A good family friend, a man who taught me a lot about knives and fishing. He had it, and when he passed away, a family friend was taking care of the collection. And when the time came, I was offered it for a reasonable price, and I was like, yes, I want that gun. It was one I always wanted, but it had even more importance to me because it had been this family friend's before me, and I would have kept it no matter what. There are lots of things along those lines that you can collect. It could be because they were family friends. I mean, even the Beretta 21A I got, a good friend of mine had one back, 20 some odd years ago. I liked it. I always wanted one. And unfortunately, when he passed away, it was sold off before I knew about it, or I would have bought that as well. But since that one had gone, I just was keeping my eye out. And by chance, I walked in and there was the one sitting on the used shelf in the local gun store. And I took advantage of it. It wasn't very expensive and I picked it up. Are there other guns that I would like? Sure. But not that many. Weer'd recently got another one of his Grail guns, which is a new production, but it was a Ruger Alaskan in .454 Casull. Is it a practical gun? Well, for a guy who lives in the city, I don't see him getting attacked by too many grizzly bears. But it's something he always wanted, and he was able to find one in his local gun shop and picked it up. So when it comes to your Grail guns, it doesn't matter what it is. If it's something you've always wanted that's not easy to find, whether it's a new production, an old gun, a discontinued, more recent gun, it doesn't really matter. It just has to be something that you desire and want. Sometimes you're disappointed with your Grail guns, and you get rid of them. And I should have known better before I got my second Grail gun of the same style, which was my M1A, because I wasn't happy with it. It wasn't a terrible gun. It just wasn't what I wanted, even though that's what I thought I wanted. But I should have known because I've had two different Mini 14s in the past, and they've run on basically the same style and action. It was the same problem. They just were not for me. I love some of my other guns that shoot very similar. I mean, 223. Well, I have an AR-15 and the Henry Supreme, two very different guns, but so much better than the Mini 14s that I had. And for 308, I mean, I have that Savage 99C, and I have an AR-10 that are much better. And after shooting it, I was like, this is not all it was hyped up to be in my mind. I mean, it wasn't like somebody told me these are great guns. I knew there were flaws with them, just like there are flaws with other guns. But sometimes you just want them. Oddball's a prime example of hey, I want it because, well, it's a Trash Panda gun. doesn't mean it's a good gun. It just means it's an interesting gun that he wants in his collection. For me, I had to like shooting it, and those two I just did not. And you just gotta find what's right for you. And when you get into collecting guns, you just have to decide, is this really the Grail gun I always thought it was? Or is it just a nice gun, and then decide from there whether or not to keep it or not? But I will tell you, the 21A, my P series, they aren't going anywhere. I love them. They aren't great guns, but they're guns I just love to shoot and have. Thank you for listening to another Southpaw Corner. And if you have any Grail guns you want to tell me about, just post them on the ACP Facebook page, and I will be glad to hear about them. And if you have any suggestions for me, and if you have any other suggestions for segments for me, please, again, let me know on the ACP Facebook page, or let Weer'd or Aaron know. I would be more than happy to help out on anything you can think of. Thank you, and stay shooting.
So, Aaron, do you have some Grail guns?
I do, but my Grail guns are kind of lame because you won't consider them hard to find. They're just hard for me to get because I don't have the income to afford them.
So you want to list them out for us?
You can see the list clearly.
I can.
So, top of the list, I would like a lever-action rifle and .357 Magnum. At this point, I don't really much care which brand it is. I just want one, and I need to be able to afford it or have it be gifted to me. That's all. Next on the list is the 32 caliber Skorpion submachine gun that just... Well, okay, I know that the gun itself comes from the 1980s, but we saw it at SHOT Show in January with the guy who was 3D printing the lower. And it's so cute. It looks so fun. I have no use for it. It's not even in the caliber I have, but I want it. It looks fun.
Aaron, I actually told my friend Wally, who you met down in Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
I told Wally, but back when he had his SOT, I said, I will pay the full expenses just for you to get a dealer sample VZ61 Skorpion, and because I'm so just in love with that freakish little platform, but specifically the pistols just don't do it for me, or the little car, whatever, getting one registered as a short barreled rifle and all that. No, it doesn't. It needs to be full auto. It needs to dump the whole magazine before the first piece of brass hits the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And and I was like, if you could get one and all that, I will bankroll you just so I could drive up to your place in Maine and shoot that 32 Skorpion.
Just looking at that gun, I get the cute aggression. It's just, I want it so much.
Have you seen the video where Ian from Forgotten Weapons actually got his hands on one and decided to test fire it?
Are we talking about the original, or are we talking about the recent one from SHOT Show?
It's the original. It's the original one, but I've got to imagine they can't be too different.
I believe I've seen it, but I'm kind of drawing a blank on a lot of it. So if you need me to remember something specific, you're not in luck.
Either way, the point that he was making was like, he's like, all right, well, I'm also gonna, I'll shoot it with the stock folded and all that stuff, and he shoots it, and just like there's this look of just sheer just shock, and just that actually wasn't all that bad. Like he was expecting it to be just a wild handful, and of course Ian's a very, very practiced full auto shooter, and he's like actually that worked really, really well. He was just amazed at how functional that gun was.
I mean, it kind of reminds me in practice of that full auto 22 with the drum magazine. And it's just like, okay, yeah, 122 long rifle isn't going to do much, especially against body armor. But 100 of them coming at you rapid fire, that'll test your plates. And so that's kind of the vibe I get from the Skorpion. It's so cute. Okay, number 3 is just a rifle in 308.
Doesn't matter what?
No, not really. At this point, I thought you'd go effing foul.
I mean, That is a really, really good choice. Also, Miles notes that he has an AR-10, and as much as I love the effing foul, I do really, really like. I mean, the AR platform is amazing. You already have an AR-15, so
yes, I do.
A 308 AR is also an amazing choice.
Yep. So now we get into the kind of outre things. I would like a KSG because I love capacity, and I've shot a KSG and I've absolutely loved it. And this one is maybe the most affordable for me because I live very close to where they manufacture, but it's still a matter of scraping together the money.
Mm-hmm.
But I like shotguns. It's got twice the ammo capacity. It's a bullpup. Yay!
Yeah, they're tiny.
Yeah. Let's see. For the longest time, I wanted a Tavor TAR 21. Just because I really like the ergonomics, and at that point, I didn't have a rifle in 5.56. While I'd still enjoy having one, it's no longer at the top of my list like it used to be. But I wouldn't turn it down.
They make a 308 Tavor, so you could kill two birds with one stone with that one.
Oh, if you could see the look on my face right now. Oh.
I'll put it in chat for you to have a look at.
Nice.
Yes.
And just for the lulz, and Weer'd, make a note of it, this is the first and perhaps the only time I will admit to wanting a revolver. I would enjoy owning a Nagant revolver.
You know what? That is actually pretty hilarious because back when I first got my CNR and I literally faxed. I used a fax machine to send my FFL to all the various wholesalers, Samco and I'm trying to remember some of the other ones. A couple of them are gone now, but send it out to all these different places, and they would send me flyers and all that. And for a while, they had if you spend $100, $150, $200 or something like that on an order, we'll throw a Nagant revolver in for free. And even then, I didn't bother to get one.
Oh, geez. Oh, sorry, I just clicked on that link. Oh, God, it's over $2,000. Yeah, that one. See, for me, that makes it a grail because I can't afford that.
Yeah.
But it's pretty. So Weer'd, what are your grail guns?
I mean, many of my grail guns I already have. I was for a long time searching for American Mosin Nagants. I really, really like Mosin Nagants that were not made by socialist nations. And so I've got a White Army Tula, so it was made under contract from the Tsar in Russia. But I also have two of each Westinghouses and Remingtons. Just so happens to be a bunch of them just fell on my lap all at once, and all that. And they were grail guns, and so I spent a bunch of money and got them all. But also, I note that Miles talks about how there's some guns that are just these are really, really cool guns to go, but he talks a lot about ones that have family heritage, and so two of the guns that are just absolute treasures to me are the rifle that my father learned to shoot on, and that he unfortunately abused what I thought to death. But again, hat tip to my buddy Wally. My buddy Wally brought it back to life, and him and some help with some friends restored it to something that is absolutely gorgeous. And if you go into the show notes, you can find a link to my blog where I have pictures of that gun. And I've told the story many times before that my father-in-law was a public defender, and so therefore he got some guilty ass people, and one of them went to jail for whatever crime that he had done, and he felt that he should have gotten off on that crime and that it was my father-in-law's fault. And he says, when I get out of jail, I'm going to come and I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill your and I'm going to kill your wife and kid too. And I happen to be married to said kid. And so he went down to the local gun store, and back in this was 1982, 83, somewhere around there, he walked into a gun store, and back then the Glock 19 of the time was a Smith & Wesson Model 66 snub nose. And so he picked up that 6-shot 357 and essentially just lived in his briefcase for his entire time of being a public defender. And so he talked about later in life, as his health was really starting to fail, that he really didn't feel confident that he could pull that heavy double action trigger anymore, and said he wanted to get something a little easier to shoot. And he says, I think I'm going to sell it and get something else. I said, you could sell it to whoever you want, so long as it's me. And so he sold that to me, and we got him a nice Glock 19 that he had until the day he died, and now his widow has it. And and I have that Model 66, and I am very, very pleased to have it. It doesn't fit my hand at all. I hate shooting it. I have other 357 Magnums that I shoot far better, but for the fact that this one was his carry gun, and was bought to protect my wife as an infant, really, really means a lot to me. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so, I wanted to mention that David was talking about how author Mad Mike Williamson, he has a Colt Diamondback, and the letters to prove that it was in the possession of Hunter S. Thompson. And David got a chance to shoot that gun, and that's I might be super jelly. There's Colt Diamondbacks are valuable guns in and themselves, but that may be the only Colt Diamondback that was owned by Hunter S. Thompson, and so that makes it a one of one. And there's also some interesting ones. Like I knew a guy, I haven't been in touch with him in a while, but he collects SKSs. He's got he built a walk-in gun safe into his house, and he has just all his SKSs up on the walls. But one of the ones that he was always pining about is the East German one. And just for him, I threw up Ian from Forgotten Weapons did a video on an East German SKS, and he noted also that the three Grail SKSs are the East German, North Korean, and Vietnamese SKSs, and he's also got one for the Vietnamese one. So yeah, there's some that are super duper rare and hard to come upon.
So the Colt Diamondback, that's the smaller version of the Colt Python?
I think it's I honestly don't know the difference. I believe it's pretty similar, but it's a 6-shot 357 Colt. I think it may just be differently optioned than the Python.
Okay, listeners, if you got it wrong, let us know.
Yeah. I mean, because there's a bunch of I'm not that big into the Colt revolvers. I mean, I've got a Colt Trooper Mark III in my safe. It's a wonderful shooter, but I do prefer Smith & Wessons over Colts. But yeah, you got the Colt, you get the Colt Troopers, and then you've got the snake guns where you've got you've got the Colt, you got always get the Python, you've got the Diamondback, but you also have the Boa. And what the exact differences between all of them, I think it's all just the various appointments on them. Going through, actually, no, I know for a fact the Boa is a Colt Trooper. I believe it's the Colt Trooper Mark IV that has had the that's had the Colt Python bluing done to it instead of just the standard factory bluing.
There's also apparently a Colt Anaconda.
Yes, well, the Anaconda I know. The Anaconda is in 44 Magnum, and there are very, very few of them. But they did make some of them in 45 Colt, and I believe he still got it. But our mutual friend Angus McThag of the lovely state of Florida has a Colt Anaconda in 45 Colt.
Nice.
It's super cool. 45 Colt is a vastly underrated round. And yeah, Miles talks about the M1A not being to his liking, and I totally get that. I really don't like the M1A. But I also totally understand the seeing something, getting very, very excited about it, thinking it's a Grail gun, and then realizing, maybe it's not for you. And I bought a Wasser 10 thinking that the AK-47 platform was just amazing. I love 7.62 by 39. I think it's a great round. I think it's really, really cool. And I thought, the AK, it's just... What a utilitarian rifle, and I hated it. I hate how the magazine works. I don't like the sights. They're just really, really crude, clunky rifles. Don't like them. Turned around, sold it, bought an FAL. Love the FAL.
Well, Weer'd. You know who else you love?
I love our listeners. I really do. I love you. No, not in a creepy way, not in a sexual way. It's fine. You guys are...
Keep it in pants.
Even though you're very, very good looking, but we can still have a relationship besides that. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate you. And we appreciate you putting up with my horrible harassment. But we also have to give a very special thanks to our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted podcast to sign up. You guys can get an early release of the podcast, plus there's bonus content. We got blooper reels. We got the ACB film tracks and the ACB Magnum.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I have a blog. It's called weerdworld.com. That's WEERD world.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
When Weer'd does it, it's harassment, but when I do it, it's cute and endearing. The way we talk to our listeners is assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.